This time is for information from the public on matters not appearing on this agenda. All comments are limited to 3 minutes and must pertain to matters within the jurisdiction of this board. When addressing the board, please state your name for the record and address the board as a whole through the chair. No action or discussion will be conducted on matters not listed on the agenda. However, the chair may refer the subject matter to the appropriate department for follow-up or schedule the matter on a subsequent board agenda. Opening it up to public comment. Public have any comments?
Good morning, Liz McIntosh, Junction City. So I'm coming today to ask for communication, mainly from the ad hoc and mainly in regard to what is happening with DFW. And I know I've reached out to probably all of you at some point or another and recently, and basically what I've gotten back is we're working on it. And I'd really like to know more about what it is exactly you're working on. And recently I had the opportunity to go to a CSAC regional meeting, and some of the board members in Humboldt, as well as the CAO from Mendo, really emphasized a lot about communication, about press releases, about getting the word out to advocates so that they could get it to the community. And that isn't happening here at all. And we are not seeing that DFW is going after people and raiding people and turning their homes upside down and treating them like criminals based on environmental priority. It isn't happening. We know of people now that are being raided because their warrant says that they are suspected felonious activity. In the eyes of the Shasta Department of DFW, that's just as simple as having plants, period. And so I'm sure that you're all scrambling and busy and doing something, but we need to know what that is and how we can support and get something done. If we can't get an MOU with DFW themselves as far as respecting our laws, or at least referring to the planning department when they find that somebody is a part of our program or in the water board, then maybe we can get an MOU with either our judges or our DA or something like that. I tried to go in there as a member of the public thinking, hey, these guys are elected officials in Trinity County, and I was told I can't talk to them. I'd like to know what the criteria is for issuing these kinds of warrants or something, because if they could even cross-reference and be able to turn it over to the planning department or something, they are completely undermining this program. They are ruining lives. And the appearance is important. And right now, the appearance is that nothing's happening. And I know that's not true, but we need some clear communication. There's nothing on the planning department website. There's nothing. So everybody feels like, wow, I just put in over $10,000 or more just in fees to the county. And what are you doing to protect me? Nothing is what it looks like. So please communicate with us and let us know what we can do to support whatever efforts that you're doing. If that's talking to our senators, if that's talking to the governor, whatever the case may be, something needs to be done if we want to make this program a success and if we really are sincere about protecting our environment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Terry Miners, Junction City. I'm here to talk actually about two things. The ordinance first coming up. We have a renewal coming up. I know there's a lot of things on the table today, and I know everybody's still a little concerned and still bringing different things in, but I'd like to say that our future in this county depends on renewing this emergency ordinance. And I say this very carefully because if we don't do that, then we're going Wild West again. And we're going to really undermine the little ability that our law enforcement has at this current time. And it's very little. I mean, everybody's still upset at what's happening here. I mean, I see a big mountaintop blowing open coming down Oregon Mountain. And so nobody's slowing down here. And I think that, our ordinance or emergency ordinance isn't perfect as it is, but we have something. We're giving law enforcement a little line. Obviously, they're not following that line like we think they should or should, and I think that's a different thing we'll talk about, because obviously they have a different understanding of what the law really is, and they don't make the laws, you folks do. Law enforcement's still supposed to enforce the laws that politicians make. There's a fine line there, and that's what keeps our country great, because if we let the law enforcement officers make up the rules, we'd be in a dictatorship. It's a different type of a place. That's why we have separation of those two things. So I think that that's what some people here are having a misunderstanding on the law enforcement side, is that they're not interpreting the rules that some politicians have laid forth. And that goes the whole way up to the governor's office. It's not just the rules that you folks have made with our licenses here, but it actually has to do with the original laws, Prop 215 and all of those things. So that's a different type of a battle. But as far as our emergency ordinance here, and the reason we really do need to renew this is because when they get a better understanding of what the law really says, they need to have a line there to work with, and we need to stop the destruction of the environment in our community. So if anybody thinks that not renewing this emergency ordinance is a positive idea, it's actually very negative, and it will undo much more greater harm in the end. So to think that there's selfish reasons or that I want the, I need something or I want, no, I think this is for the greater good of all. It's not for just one of us. I do think we need to remove the no collective, no cooperative, no dispensary rule, because I think that interferes with the way the law is working with the license that you issue currently. Because I operate under a nonprofit corporation, okay? And technically you have a rule saying I can't operate like that, and we have to operate under an LLC. That's for profit. That doesn't start till January 1st, 2018. So we need to operate under collectives and cooperatives till then, okay? And we still probably will be able to operate after that fact, under that model still. So understanding that, we need to immediately remove and repeal the one portion of that just to make it legal what you guys have already put in place. So that's just it. Thank you very much.
Anyone else for public comment?
Jose Costa from Mountain area. I just would like to comment that a grading ordinance hasn't come forward, and all of you seem to support that, and it impacts the environment and stops some of the degradation that we see in our communities. So I'd like to agendize to find out what is the subject, to find out what is the blockage from the Board of Supervisors going forward in this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I have a request to agendize grading ordinance.
Just heard what's going on. So I can tell what's going on online. I know you know where he lives.
There's many things I don't discuss with Mr. Acosta. Did I not hear a request for to agendize grading ordinance?
Again, we can have that discussion, no problem, but it's staff. What do you want to put off to the side and not just? I think you have a whole board that supports grading ordinance and has since 15. Where are you going to find the staff to do it? That's been the problem, and that's been
It's a discussion we
repeated.
want to have, and we want to agendize it, or we're discussing it now out of the Brown Act.
It's up to you.
Okay, let's agendize it then. I have consensus from me, Naomi, agendize discussion on grading ordinance.
So I need the whole board.
What?
You want me to just, I'm writing it down.
Yeah, I know the problem, so
Yeah,
we
it's
can
been
discuss it.
repeated over and over.
Yeah, I get it. Let's go forward. Thank you.
Morning, Tom Belenko from Douglas City. Mr. Chair, I wanted to bring a problem to your attention that has nothing to do with cannabis. Well, it might someday, but has to do with a group that silently supported you in your campaign last year. I don't know if you were aware of it even, but mountain lions. There's one stuck in Griffith Park. It has been referred to as the world's most famous mountain lion. His name is P22. Heroically, he came from the Santa Monica Mountains, crossed two freeways, the 405 and the 101, to get into Griffith Park, which is in the heart of Los Angeles. He is essentially trapped there. He's been looking for a mate for years now. He's lonely. He's undoubtedly hungry. Circumstantial evidence places him at the scene of a koala disappearance from the Los Angeles Zoo that's also located in Griffith Park. The current strategy now for P22 is being proposed by the National Wildlife Federation, which, despite its title, is a nonprofit. There's a $50 million project to build a wildlife bridge over the 101, so he and other lions like him can migrate between Griffith Park and the Santa Monica Mountains. Problem being, the population in the Santa Monica Mountains is too crowded already. That's why he ventured across these highways. So I would propose we invite P22 to Trinity County. I think we could invite him for 1% of the $50 million. That would give us a fund to study his whereabouts, provide compensation for any depredations that could be attributed to him or any other of his cousins in the neighborhood. We may not be rich in money until events later today unfold, but we're rich in land. So I think we should share that with some of the wildlife out there. So maybe the board would send a letter to their counterparts in Los Angeles offering our space to solve their mountain life problem.
And Mr. Belanco, what section of the county do you live in and will we be putting?
Oh, you can put them on my property. I've seen lions out there. I wouldn't call them friendly, but we've got dogs and they don't seem to bother either. So I think the North County probably could use some mountain lions.
I was going to volunteer in North County donate a mate for. I think Griffin Park might be a little short of one.
I've only got 2 hanging around my house, you know.
Mr. Ballot, suggesting we ask for a little bit of money at the same time, did I hear you correctly?
Yeah, I would say 1%.
Kind of like 10%.
And Mr. Belanco, is this an item that's like agendized?
Well, it's up to your good judgment if you think.
I think it'd be just, we're doing everything else. Why don't we just do a letter from the boards? Is it the LA City Council or LA County Board of Supervisors?
I would send it to every board.
Great.
And the LA.
Amazing.
Yeah, let's do the LA City. We must
Thank you.
get famous for something
Valley
else.
News is out there too.
Yeah.
Thank you. Shall we agendize that?
Well, I'll just bring a letter. I'll let you know when it's ready.
Thank you.
District 2 will happily take that letter.
Take the money and we'll put the line in your district.
Hi,
Thank you.
my name is Darcy Peters. I'm of Wildwood. I own a 5-acre, beautiful little ranch. Organic, sustainable, goats, chickens, pigs, rabbits, dogs, huge vegetable garden, huge flower garden. We are members of the community. We're supportive. We're taxpayers. We volunteer at things. And my husband and I are compliant. We have a marijuana garden as well. We're compliant with Water Board. We're compliant with Trinity County. We're compliant with everything that has been laid before us. We've been to meetings. We thought that we were being protected by you with what you've set before us. I'm here to tell everyone that that is completely and utterly untrue. There have been raids going on in Wildwood, permitted farmers. It is GFW. Every farm that has been raided besides ours has been presented a warrant that said that they thought there were environmental concerns. Ours said it thought we were felons. Now, if you look at my property, we're a mom and pop. We're 60 years old, almost. We're doing absolutely nothing wrong. And nothing was done by the people that I have supported to support us. We've lost close to everything, becoming compliant. We have taken all of our savings to do our water board, to move our garden. They came onto our property, they found nothing environmentally wrong. They searched my property for 6 hours. They went through every nook and cranny of everything that I know. I want to know what the board is doing to protect us, people like us, that are doing everything that we can to be that model poster child farm. And if this is allowed to happen to people like us, it can happen to absolutely anybody. I do not think it's fair. I do not think that we are being supported appropriately. I'm not understanding what's happening, and I would like clarification on what you all are planning to do. I have called McGuire's office to find out why are these Fish and Game doing this. I have Fish and Game sitting at my picnic table on my porch, and they told me flat out that it is because our Board of Supervisors is not communicating clearly with them. I said, what could I have done? I showed them the staff. I have daily logs. I have everything meticulously filed. And I showed them that. They wouldn't even let me show them anything that I had for an hour and a half. They sat there and they just wanted to find something to say that we were felons. I'm coming to you to ask you what you are doing and what we are supposed to do. You have all of our money. We have no resources left because we believed you. Thank you.
Jody, no, hey, let's keep it down. We need to take care of this. Really? Judy,
Yeah.
is this something you'd like to
I would
move
like to
forward, refer to and move forward with to agendize eventually?
Well, let me just give her a brief moment because she.
Can we just do this at the ad hoc, because we will have
Yeah,
our
okay.
ad hoc reports where we will discuss
The situation.
what's been asked and the situation, which will be coming up.
So
Is it true what Fish and Game told me?
Look, we're
that-
not going to answer any questions at
Okay.
this point. Let's leave it at ad hoc, and ad hoc will also not answer any questions. But this item, this incident should be agendized as far as I'm concerned, but it's pretty much up to the rest of the board to bring this
Well,
forward.
we are working on a couple things we'll talk about in our ad hoc, which is a few minutes, well, an hour away. So we are, I will tell you though, we've been dealing with this since late May. We are just as unhappy as everybody in this room is. Many conversations have been had. So in brief, I'm sorry this happened. I've spent many hours on this and will continue till we get a resolution.
This is my life and these are lives that you're
I
dealing with.
agree.
It's not just criminal, it's immoral.
No, it is.
Thank you.
If you speak up, we can't hear back here.
Thank
So
you.
if you can speak up, we appreciate it.
Get ready for a squeal. Let's give it a try. Go ahead.
That was my wife, Darcy. I'm not gonna let her get up here and cry alone. My name is John, I'm from Wildwood. Not only was our property basically invaded, our house, our home, everything was gone through. Now, Fish and Game came under the auspice of criminal activity. They tailor-make their warrants to fit the property. They do their research first, and every one of the properties along Wildwood Road had a different entry reason. Not all of this. I research, 4 years of research is down the drain. And this is bona fide research, all down the drain. They came in under the auspice of Little, Sergeant Corporal, whatever his name is, Little, said, well, if you had your 215s, we wouldn't be doing this. They searched everything. We couldn't find our 215s. We couldn't provide them at the time. Well, one of the items that they went through on my wife's dresser had our prescriptions, our 215s in it. They just neglected this. They had everything else. They collected everything else as evidence, but they left those 215s. And there's something that smells like the outhouse door on a tuna boat here. And I want answers. I am not gonna recover what has been lost without a lawsuit. And if there is a class action lawsuit, yeah, you know, but I've got to tell you, this is every sort of wrong. We have invested everything because we could invest. We believed that we could invest everything with the promise of a return on our investment, ROI. And I'm standing up here, literally, I don't have pants on. Don't have them. It's all gone. And this committee led us, to believe that we were protected. Of course we're not protected from the federal government, but at least it's a state agency that is coming in and doing this damage. Now, how can that be? A state agency? I mean, I could understand if it was the federal government or a branch of the federal government, but this is a state agency. Please.
No, I do have a couple questions. Number one, it's a state agency, so we don't have jurisdiction over them. So, and we can talk about that later, but I do wanna know, was there an ADA on the property during this happening?
Assistant District Attorney, yes, there was.
There was, okay, that's what I need to know.
And in response to that, she said that after this whole thing was over, and Darcy being questioned for 3 minutes, or 3 hours rather, me being questioned for 3 hours separately, she said, I used to be a strong opponent of cannabis, and you two have changed my mind. You two have changed my mind. What that means, probably the same thing as this council. Nothing. But there you have it. Apparently, we changed her mind on the apparatus of cannabis.
And sir, did you, I think I know this, but did you get your plants cut?
Every one of them had every one of the plants cut and all of my research taken away. That's 4 years I can't recover, and I'm 61.
So,
Thank you for speaking about
My
this.
pleasure.
Let's move on to the next.
David, I know when you had that conversation, I'm glad we know that confirmation of the ADA was on the property.
Any other public comments?
I'm Jake from Hayfork. This is probably going to sound funny since I'm probably about half the age of everybody on the board. But after what we've heard, what we've all gone through in this community over the last really 2 years, trying to build momentum to where we are now, to make this community compliant, at least to try to make 500 out of the 5,000 farms in this community compliant. I would love to see personal grievances set aside. I would love to see squabbles with neighbors set aside. I would love to see everybody act like an adult and deal with the big picture issues here. We have horrendous things going on in South County. We have horrendous things going on everywhere in the National Forest. I'm so happy to see U.S. Forest law enforcement here. I would love to see them taking care of some of these egregious environmental impacts. I know that they got one out in Burnt Ranch, which directly affects a good friend of mine and his water source. Awesome, fantastic. Let's get these bad actors out. But let's keep our eye on the prize and the well-being of our county and the well-being of the people who care about this county and are part of this community and are working day in and day out to make our little world up here in the mountains a better place. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
My name is Elsie Ackerley. I'm from Hayfork, and I am co-owner of Trinity Mountain Products. I'm not sure if I should speak now because...
Is this something on the agenda later?
Okay, very
You should
good.
speak to it at that time.
Okay,
Thank you, Elsie.
thank you.
Any other public comments? Seeing none, I'm going to bring it back to the board.
Mendocino and a supervisor for the Sonoma. It was jam-packed full of all kinds of law. I'm happy to say that Ms. McIntosh was there as a part of coalition of farmers who want to be totally registered. It was just amazing. It was 2 days. Leslie was there. It was great to have Trinity be represented in such an awesome way. And July 14th, and I think that's the one, I toured our local jail, and I would like to ask that we put that on the agenda to talk about our jail at some point.
It's coming up.
And that's all I'm going to report out right now.
Thank you. Judy?
Let me use your mic. Let's see.
Same CSAC, our cannabis working group. We do a regional meeting, as you know. You joined us at different CSAC regional. This happened to be in Humboldt related to the topic of cannabis. Last year, we talked about trees or whatever. So it was a good good meeting overall.
Thank you. My out-of-county travel, I met with OMS, but otherwise I just wanted to legislation.
Right,
Do you have anything special you want to talk about?
I
Keep
have
sending
some,
me emails.
yeah, the trailer bill is where it's at. There's a AB assembly member bill that's kind of lingering out there, but I'm told it's not gonna go anywhere. As we all know, we'll do, seal, emergency regs toward early fall.
Okay. Need for water.
No, nothing more.
Okay. We have, what?
I'm sorry.
No, we have, Bobby and I, no, we have the excise tax, sales tax regarding cannabis coming up later today, which everyone will have. What about?
Yeah, so, where do we?
Go ahead.
Cannabis, no,
Some quick things. I know we have nursery coming back to the planning commission. Where's Leslie?
27th.
27th. And then, we expect testing to come to the board in early August. I don't know which date yet, but testing will come back. And then we'll keep moving along as we've been talking about, and then we'll bring, in theory, the UO back to, the board August 1st.
fantastic.
So,
That'll give us a lot of work on.
And manufacturing will head to the grid,
to PC.
to DC.
Right, so that's the next, really on the deck.
What's your feeling on labs? That's
We test,
testing.
that's gonna come to the board very soon. That's ready to go.
Fantastic, thank you.
You know, we lost a meeting this July, so.
We're paying for it today.
That's one way of saying it, yeah. And back to the discussion we heard on fishing game. I've talked to a variety of people since the fishing game activity, and I kind of resent being told that we aren't doing anything. In fact, I called you personally, Liz, early when this happened. Yes, I did, on the phone. And,
Can't say anything, so.
when it first happened in Lewiston, Downstream Consulting called us. Keith and I spent some time with them and spent some time with Fishing Game along with our county council in late May. Since then, council has been talking to their council. We've talked to our various state representatives. They're well aware of the issue and are very concerned as well. This is a very odd thing that's going on. We will continue to work with it. In fact, we're also talking to our local in-house agencies. David will be talking as well to them. This is not, we're not done with this. We're upset as everybody else is for our license holders. And it's an ongoing issue that we thought was remedied until about a week ago when more stuff erupted. We thought it was handled and actually folks understood the law. Clearly, they don't understand the law. So we will continue to work on it and bring some other action forward as we see fit in the very, very short term.
Do you know if this is happening in any other counties or where these agencies? Sorry to.
No, it is not. I mean, it is to a little extent, but not to this degree and license type holders. There may be some license type holders in the process, like in Humboldt, but there was some serious criminal activity. That kind of, and that was a multi-agency involvement from some of the stories I've read. It is not happening in other counties. On my phone calls, other counties said we can't even get arrested by a fishing game on some serious issues in other counties. Yeah, I mean, related to cannabis. So there's something going on that meets the eye that we're trying to figure out. But I will tell you, Keith and I and Margaret have been very unhappy. Supervisor Chadwick certainly has been in touch when the first stuff erupted on Wildwood Road. That was the first wave of Wildwood Road, and we had some of our license holders there. So David is not lost on David. David's involved as well, and we will continue to be involved until we have an understanding. We'll take it as far as we have to go.
To answer the previous question that was asked, there has been clear and concise discussion with Fish and Game. So if they say there hasn't, that's very disingenuous. The day that the first hit happened, we caught those guys in the restaurant, and they were agreed to meet with us that day. We had 2 or 3 hours, had very frank discussions with what we thought was a problem of what they were doing. We've had discussions since then and have gone up the ladder. So we have our hands tied in a lot of ways because they basically in the first meeting said they'll do what they want to do. The important thing that I came away with any of those meetings is have your 215 cards available on the wall, stuck up. And I've had calls from many growers, and that's my advice. Now, have your water board intact, permit on site, and have followed it correctly. Just don't have your permit if it says something.
Is
medical back in the board, man.
Kevin? No.
Sorry.
So
I really thought we were
feel
beyond.
free to ask me at a later time. So that's number one. Number two, have your 215s up, ready to handle it at that time. That's the only remedy that advice that I can give at this time.
So I think there's clearly some other stuff going on. We won't elaborate at the moment because something does not smell correctly on this whole scene in Trinity County, given some information that's come my way. So we will pursue it. I've talked with David.
Elaborate.
And David will be with us as well, as while Margaret is gone. Both of them certainly have been brought in since late May, trying to address this issue. Because too many people have worked too hard on this issue. All of you license holders trying to get through the system, our staff, this board, ad hoc, county council. So it is not lost on us, and we are very unhappy about it. So I will let you in that. Unless, David, you have any other words of wisdom?
No, but I have some plans and obviously some discussions that I'll be having, and I need to keep those confidential.
Sure.
Bobby, you're just untied up.
Yes.
Okay, let's leave it at that then. Did I finish all the ad hocs? Pretty much.
If there's any water legislation.
We did water, and we've had some discussions regarding jail, and we need to figure out where that stands literally.
So I did have a question. Bobby asked to.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Leslie Hubbard, Interim Planning Director.
Yeah.
So in current planning, we're catching up with building permits and other processes that were a little bit delayed or are required for the cannabis applications. We have 2 planners that are very, very busy. Environmental Health is processing more septic permits, twice as many septic permits this year than they ever have before. Busy with well permits as well. The septic permits, it requires 2 site visits per, 2 inspections per location, so that takes quite a bit of their time. Cannabis, staff is very aware of questions regarding policy, nuance, ambiguities. We defer all of that to the board or to the ad hoc committee. Our job is really to handle processing the applications and implementation of what we have currently. We're at 500, we filled our 500 slots between applications that we've received and licenses that have been issued and interest cards. So we're at our 500, that's full. We're waitlisting the rest, and just we'll see how that comes together depending on how everything works out with our ordinance. Any questions?
Just a quick question for Leslie. First of all, thank you as a member of the ad hoc, thank you and your staff for trying to fast track as many applications through. I know when you stepped into the role, there were like 300 applications or interest cards combined to pass through, and it was a big job. So thank you guys for trying to, and I know you extended some deadlines, and I know folks are trying to get builders in, get electricians in, get septics in. So I'm assuming staff is extending deadlines when people can't get an electrician in or whatever they need to do.
If we hold up their process, if it looks like it's on our end, we definitely extend it. If we have, it's kind of a case by case basis.
I mean, some
If it's
places,
on us, we definitely want to extend it.
some places still maybe have snow, depending on how high they are.
Oh, in that
They
case,
can't get somebody up
absolutely.
there. So,
Just common sense approach,
yeah,
absolutely.
so thank you, and as we move forward.
Do you have a count of actually how many permits people have in their hands regarding cannabis that they're able to have this pretty stamp on it, as I was told earlier? How many permits have been issued?
Close to 60.
60.
Close to 60, maybe a little bit more.
Fantastic. Thank you.
So do you want to let the board know you had that event where you had speed?
We called it speed.
Speed dating. We called it.
Speed permitting.
Well, we tried that. We tried a workshop just to see if we could make certain items. There are a number of items required in a licensing application packet. So what we tried was to bring in a load of people. We invited 60 people. We had 33 that did not show, 27 showed. Of the 27 that showed, we ended up issuing provisional licenses for 13 of them. We wanted to try it to see if it would work. One thing we didn't want to leapfrog people that are currently in the system with people that came in on a one-day workshop. We didn't want to do that, but we wanted to see, can we do it in a way that's a little bit more efficient? And it seemed to work. I think that we can streamline it, learn some things from that, and I think we can streamline it a little bit more from there, but it looks like everything that's required in our application packets are things that we're trying to get our heads around. SB 94, now PERSA, that merges MRSA and ALMA. We're trying to make sure that we're just looking at it right now and seeing, are we in line with what it looks like a state's gonna require? And we're pretty close.
Thank you. That answered. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a class I went the other day, and Christy, I thought you were here. There was a concern specifically on her safety that I would like to address at this time. I don't know, Christy, it's your story. Would you like to come up? Because I think the full board needs to be aware of it.
Which part of it?
Speak into the mic.
As part of Christy's job, she is out quite a bit by herself, and there's been just the one incident that you wanted. I know you have more than one.
I'm Christy Anderson with Trinity County Environmental Health Director. I believe you're referring to the incident where I pulled into a routine septic inspection. And because the neighbor did not like his neighbor that was growing, he then blocked in my vehicle, did not allow me to leave, and then threatened my life. Since that point, we have gotten radios for our vehicles, which we didn't have before then. However, safety is always a high priority for the county and our employees. That end of it, I mean, I learned routine more. I should have called the sheriff's department immediately. If in a location without reception or cell reception, now I have a radio. But I mean, it is of course always a concern, as I am always out by myself.
We have a request in also with Becca to come and work with Jeff Dickey, who's out in the field constantly, Christy, I am intermittently, but to work with the three of us because we're out in the middle of nowhere sometimes. These two especially out in the field that without contact, without the ability to use cell phones, without any contact. We know where they're going, but Becca will be trying to work with them a little bit to come up with a way to increase their safety.
So, and you certainly are aware you can ask for assistance going out to the appointment if you have some concern, but sometimes you don't know.
This was a schedule.
This incident was a scheduled, in Hayfork proper inspection. If there's something that I know that I'm going enforcement wise, I do request, assistance, and I have received assistance from the sheriff's department. There hasn't been a problem with that. Specifically, there's just a lot of locations that are, off the beaten path and far away from local law enforcement, assistance.
So I have a question. You were going to a property and the neighbor was the one that was grumpy
Yeah.
and caused all this.
Correct.
And were you going out to inspect a licensed holder property?
This was previous to the licensing.
Okay.
And I think another concern that I brought up with Bobby was that sometimes people will close their gate and lock it out of security reasons and behind you. And so an office-wide policy we've created is that we will not enter a property if they're gonna lock it behind us.
Sure.
And I think that's more than reasonable to ask of the owner of the property. Especially when there's, 9 males and I'm one female and they lock the property, it makes you feel a little uncomfortable, so.
So, and you, if I heard you correctly, your neighbor was upset that the neighbor was growing, and that's the gentleman who
Correct.
locked you in.
Correct.
Okay.
The non-grower.
Thank you, Chris. Anything else?
Yeah, going back, Leslie, on the amounts of things that are happening, is there a way at a further board meeting that you could bring us how many permitted, completed, permitted have been rated, how many in process, how many that are just rogue, just so we can see a breakdown and know why. I think I sent you an email and I didn't give you enough time, but could you bring that to us in the future?
Yes.
So we can look at that?
I'm not sure.
Well,
I think
do you have access to that information?
Well, if there are cases pending, of course I can't access, there's some information that I won't be able to access. If I can look at who all is in our program and who is running into problems with law enforcement, I can come up with a number there. Whether I can, whether I will be privy to information that is on warrant, I don't know about
No,
that.
I'm just saying, like, if we have a percentage of the people, like Darcy and John Peters, who were complete our process, I would like to know how many of those people, besides them, that have completed, and how many in process are cut down by other agencies.
Perhaps in your database, or you have a new program out, some piece of software, is there a place where you can add that they have had contact with law enforcement, whether plans have been cut? Things
That's
like that?
doable.
Okay, would
Yes.
that satisfy?
Yes. I've already emailed Alyssa, and that's what I'm asking for, but if you have to modify it, that's fine.
But my question is, do Fish and Game after the fact comes and contacts us and says this is what we did?
No.
Right.
Part of it would be
So
up
how
to
do we
the
know it? I mean, we know what we know.
permittee to.
Well, I speak with applicants, and sometimes if I feel like there's something that we can learn, I will contact Fish and Wildlife, or I will contact the Sheriff's Department if there's something we can learn from that. But no, I talk to our applicants or licensees. I talk to them and ask for a debrief. What happened? Give me the whole story. And in that case, we could keep track of it in our database. Yes, we could keep track of that.
We're just doing it by notes, what we hear. I mean, when people call me or call
Well,
you.
this would.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's it, I hope. I'm gonna move on to consent.
Chair, before we do, I have a point of order.
Yes, ma'am.
Prior Board of Supervisor and public meetings during the presentations, the audience, the public has had opportunity to ask questions and clarification. I did not do that today. I had many of them, specifically USFS, come up to me and ask that I request that.
Okay, that is my decision, and I made that decision not to do that today and put that officer in that position. Or anyone else.
He's gone.
Okay.
Moving on to consent. Board of Supervisors governance manual to change the agenda procedures. Supervisor Morse.
I have a couple of questions. This isn't gonna work. Can I borrow this, please? I know from time to time, we certainly update this. I'm not sure, what is the driving, I have a couple of questions, so bear with me. What is the driving force to do this now?
To comply with county clerk. This is actually, David gets to talk about this, but he might not know too much about it.
I can explain a little about that as well. The driving force for my reviewing this and looking at it with Margaret Long County Council was the implementation of the notice agenda system, changed the deadline and submission requirements for agenda items.
So that's really what we're just remedying, curing in this document.
Along with moving public comment from moving the public to pulling items to making public comment on each item and approaching a board member to pull an item or get further discussion on it.
Right, so those are, I have two concerns. One that you just mentioned about pulling items off the consent agenda.
Right.
The way it's proposed now, it is not allowing that to happen then.
Right.
So I understand
Similar to
that.
other counties. Similar to other counties.
And I certainly appreciate that. I think we witness people pulling items just for fun, but I really don't want to ultimately take that away. So that's my big concern on this issue. We hope people would use pulling an item off consent agenda in a responsible way. It doesn't always happen, but I still don't want to take it away. My other concern is the item on the agenda where it talks about the CAO not having as much input on putting the agenda, if I'm understanding that correctly. So that's my other concern. Although we don't have a CAO, they still are going to be, once we have one, are going to be very involved with items and maybe some of the consent items may not even be consent, they may be county matters, I don't know. So those are my two items that I have a little bit of heartburn over.
What do you want to do about it?
Well, I would, me personally, I certainly.
No, we want to be professional. Regarding you might want to talk to Naomi or, I'm not putting you on the spot here. You tabled this item last time.
Right.
Too. And did you get a chance to talk to Margaret over the past
Wasn't Margaret, it was a constituent that I needed to kind of make sure I understood them correctly, but we were on the same page. So I know other counties do that where you say.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the CAO side of it.
That I did not get a chance to talk with Margaret on it. I just would like that language refined a little bit so the CAO certainly has the really involved in the agenda. I mean, I think some items also could be handled differently. Not having the CAO presents that issue that we're experiencing over the many months. I think the CAO has to have a little bit more control on the agenda.
So what wording do you want to change in the CAO?
I don't know off the top of my head. Let's see.
Do you have a location?
It's under, here it is, it's under H, number 1, input from the CAO. On the agenda for all board meetings shall be prepared by the board clerk or clerk of the board with input from CAO. Maybe with the coordination with the CAO, we need to have the CAO have a little bit more
More than input?
yeah, I mean, direction, they work for the board, they take direction from the board. Sure, sure, that'll work too.
So,
Is this H?
page 9.
Yeah, that language works. Yeah, I just wanna make sure it's on there.
So, Naomi, have you found that one yet?
It's under H1. Right.
And you're just wanting to change it to coordination. I will note that there is a track change version on here, so that is the language that actually was existing in the governance manual prior to changes. The only changes there are additions in blue and deletions in red. You're looking at the track change one. I think because it's a county council item, that I should probably make a discussion with Margaret. It's the chairman's pleasure of what you'd like to do.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yep, please.
So, I mean, this is a board policy document, it's up to you how you want to run meetings and conduct business operationally day to day. I think the current need is to change the board procedures for the new system.
Right, that's right.
These other ancillary issues, I think, can be talked out and language can be developed over a longer period of time. So perhaps the board can consider adopting the procedural changes that the clerk can point out to you. And not table this, but direct staff to take the comments made by the board today into account and come back with something as far as additional changes, if any. We can clarify the CAO's involvement. I agree with Supervisor Morris. The CAO is going to be very involved in the agenda. So I don't think the language is intended to cut them out. But if it's not clear, we can make it clear.
And adjust the language for bring it back, or does the board want to approve it in the current form?
I actually don't like this new governance manual. I think today.
It was tabled for
I
a
have it
month,
all. Yes.
and did you talk to county council about it as you
I've
had
not
a
had
chance
any
to?
return emails. That's what you want to know.
What?
I have not received return emails on several days.
Okay.
So, why don't we take David's suggestion, if it works for you, and for the essence of time, adjust the procedural for the agenda, the new agenda software issue. Some of these other things that you and I are concerned about, we can address at a later date.
I'm actually agreeing with Morris.
Okay.
Public comment?
Oh, Bobby, do you have more than just those two?
I just want to be real clear about what we're calling procedural.
Okay, sure.
What are we calling procedural?
Well, I'll let the clerk.
Everybody wants to look at it, Naomi.
So you want to read those off, so we're all.
Yeah, give me a moment, I'll gather the points.
If I can ask the supervisor though, what particular areas that you have concern with, so we can.
The way that we're changing the public input, not one person I know, and especially in light of the last grand jury report, the public already feels squeezed out. They're not having their voices heard, whether we like what they pull for whatever reason, they're not being heard. This changes things and even restricts what I feel my liberty at this time is in the old governance manual compared to the new one. I can go over the different pages. It doesn't simplify it. I think if we're gonna change Naomi's name, we need to be clerk of the board because, or county clerk, because that's her new address. On the table of contacts, it doesn't even have page 7. I could go over, I mean, I have it written out. I don't wanna take the time. If we can clarify procedures, that has to do with the Novus agenda, new program, exclusively to that, I have no problem. But the rest of the document, I think needs to be done in open session, where the public can say, yes, we like this, or no, we don't.
And that's kind of what we're
talking
doing
about.
now.
Yeah.
Where's the point?
Okay, so let's see what she has and see if we're all on the same page. Let's move from there.
And because this is, essentially, the changes that implementing the notice agenda system required apologies, implementing the notice agenda system, the changes that are outlined in here have been implemented on that side. In my viewpoint, changing, updating this, if it's easier to do it in one fell sweep and the supervisors feel free waiting. I personally don't feel impacted by that. If you want to move forward with changing procedural aspects, I would say beginning with the agenda procedure section, it begins on page 11. There aren't any changes until page 12. So agenda procedures, section A. Section
11 of the new one, or where it corresponds with the old?
I'm looking at the track change document. That's easier for me to see where the changes are made. So the track change document, beginning on page 11 with agenda procedures, section A. Members of the public agenda items. Section B, requirements, procedures for scheduling agenda items. Section C, agenda format. I would not include section D because that includes, I think, the changes that you're not comfortable with, so I would say D, section D.
That's on page 14.
Agenda item definitions, correct. That would not be included.
And was it H?
H, I don't think it's an agenda procedure.
In the section.
And so it could be
Essentially,
Naomi, I didn't hear that last one, section what?
section E, the very last one. So essentially, it would be the agenda procedures part of the governance manual. It would be all the sections except for section C. I'm sorry, section D, agenda item definitions.
What about the CAO side?
That I believe is in a different part.
You sure you don't want to strike those or change those now?
If it's,
Yeah, we can, I think your
If-
final
if-
approval of
Right,
language.
if, Bobby, if those are the only two, the pulling of agendas and Judy CAO, we can change those words now. That will be happening.
I mean, I think what you're hearing, that means from three of us that we're not comfortable with not allowing the
Right, so
numbers
change
one
it now.
item.
And move forward with it along with the CAO item, unless Bobby has
you
much more to
understand
deal
that?
with.
Naomi, what her request is.
I understand what your concern is. I'm not sure if I understand how you would like it changed.
I don't want the wording changed at all. Remember when we first did this, I sent you the highlight of what I thought was an accidental withdrawal. And then we continued to use the old agenda first time. So that would be putting it, reversing it back to that, and also
Okay, so just essentially disregarding the changes that were made.
regarding
that section.
whether it's the public or myself or any other board supervisor being able to have access to how it is now.
So what you're asking is just to keep the same language from the current manual we operate from.
In regards to those items.
Right.
And I sent them in highlight.
So if you're looking at this, it would be page 14, D, agenda item definitions, B.
Okay, so,
And we would disregard any of the track changes on there.
okay. That works for me.
Mr. Chair, quite frankly, doing this sort of work in a board meeting is not, I would just assume this be tabled again for a rewrite, so everybody can get this. Everybody has access to see what we're doing, plus we can nail this up.
And it wasn't a great burden on her over the past month that it was tabled once already, and the board hasn't done any work on it. So, but I'm more than willing to entertain a motion to table it if you want again.
I would make that motion.
We tabled it, so we can have this discussion, and now she knows and she'll bring it back to us.
We should have had this discussion. And having council
getting our
to
time
bring
to
it back and all the reports and what it is.
No, I don't want to do that.
This is a county council item, so the discussion I think should happen with county council.
Okay, I'd still like to open it up to public comment regarding this item. John?
My question is on the consent agenda. You have on there that there's no fiscal impact. And clearly, when you have a $5 million, you're talking $5 million in the consent agenda today. And there is 4 items that are plainly affecting the general fund. My request is like before, when money was involved, you put on the amount of money, and you might have said it was not general fund, but you still put down the amount of money on that line that was being involved, and I'd like to see that stay on there.
Okay, would that also be resolved by not having it under consent?
You're gonna have, 42 things right now.
I know.
So, I mean, I don't mind if it's in consent. I just like to know.
You'd like to see a
I
line
just like
item
to
that-
know
Okay.
on when you say there's no fiscal impact in general fund, I like to have you used to say how much money was being involved and where that money came from.
Okay,
And my other object that I have that I don't like was what you want to.
hold on with the first option for a second. Is that something that county council or county clerk wants to have on the agenda or not?
I think we can do that easily by having the department heads in their agenda reports put that information. I remember it
Right.
previously, it used to be there.
And is there a place in Nova's agenda to
The system
bring
should
that
be
up?
able to accommodate changes like that.
Okay,
if
so
it's
make
pressure
note of
for-
that, since it looks like we're gonna table this, make note of adding that information, if the board would like to see that.
That's fine.
Bobby?
Yes.
Okay, go on, John.
And the other thing I have a hard time with is when the chair of the board can tell other board members to be quiet or the public to shut up. I have an issue with that. I think if the board members have something to discuss, they should have the right to discuss it more than one time. Because the way it's reading right now, you have one opportunity to do it and you can't say another word. That's what's in there. You better read it.
Okay, why don't you take it, John?
Liz McIntosh, Junction City. I just want to first say thank you to Supervisor Morris and Chadwick and Groves for bringing up your concerns. I think they're all very valid. And I'd also just like to remind the board, I think we all know that many heads are better than one. And so it may seem frivolous at times when we come and pull things that don't seem like, there's confusion, and it's better that we resolve that confusion than let it just go. Sometimes we cannot contact you in enough time to have these items pulled and then they're passed. And last year, there was one item in particular that I pulled as a member of the public and nobody else had pulled it. And on the face of it, it said $1,500 from the general fund, but inside of the staff report, it was over $50,000. And so that happens. Mistakes are made, but those are big mistakes. And even this here today is put on here as a non-controversial item, and clearly it is not non-controversial. So please don't take away our right to do this. And personally, I find it highly offensive that anybody would even suggest to do this. I don't care if it's done in other counties, that doesn't make it right. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Any other public comment? Yes, sir.
I just need to clarify something. Nobody was taking anything away. What we were saying is rather than pull the items, the public can comment on the items and it stays on consent. I don't think it makes a difference in the end. If they want to comment on an item, it either gets pulled to comment or it stays on the agenda to comment, and pulling it is what they want to do.
Yeah, I understand. That's just the way it's been spun up, and that's what they'd like to talk about.
There's no comment.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Mark Feely, Weaverville. I've been attending board meetings, I don't know, a dozen years more. I don't think I've ever pulled an agenda, consent agenda item before, maybe once or twice. And I recognize the purpose of a consent agenda, and that staff and your colleagues on the board try to make a determination to simplify conducting business for routine matters. However, my ability to pull a consent agenda item, should I choose to, should not be taken away from me.
Okay.
Period. I don't really give a flip what any other county does. And I understand we operate under Rosenberg, not Roberts. But if I may have a simple question to clarify something that I may be involved in this county, in county business, I want to be able to pull that and get that question answered or addressed. So I highly advise this board, if this item is tabled, in consideration to eliminate that and maintain the status quo. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Sure you don't want to make those changes now and move forward with it?
No.
Make the changes that, you know what, step up.
What?
No. The changes, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, other than the changes on the procedural, if you don't want to change the consent item, then you don't vote for that.
Right.
It stays as it is.
And also for changing the wording with CAO.
Right. So we're not going back and rewriting that, we're just leaving it alone.
That's what I'm trying to move forward with this item.
So
leaving
the
it
only
the
thing
way
that
it
we're
is
changing is
instead of
that
tabling it.
clerk to the board needs a change regarding the agenda process because of the new software. So the rest of it can remain as it is, and
I'm going to open it back up to public comment regarding this. Mr. Hamilton, please step up to the podium. You don't like the way it exists now?
I don't like the changes that
We're
there are a lot of
talking about,
changes.
and we're literally talking about not changing it, just the procedural side of it
If
for
you-
Nova's agenda, and everything
you're
would
gonna-
remain the same.
If everything remains the same, other than the input from the staff, then that's perfectly fine.
And what, if you're not understanding
Right.
that, that's what I'm asking for now,
Okay.
because I would like to move forward with this item and have the board vote on it and make the changes that they want.
And
Yes, sir.
if that is the board's pleasure, then what we change is the procedural items that were discussed. And we would also come back to you at some time in the future with the clarification with CAO role. I don't think that's hurting anybody's feelings, but the consent item stuff will remain as it is now.
I move to waive consent.
And was the clerk writing that down?
She was, of course she was. So we're going to adopt just the procedural items for the agenda as it relates to Novus. And the rest will remain as it is in our current manual. Is that right?
Absolutely. Does everyone understand that? Make a second.
No, I'd like it spelled out which is which.
And then just, if we wouldn't mind adding final approval, that's that CAO item that I raised. Where was it? Which one? 9, you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you were right.
If I can, Mr. Chair, I listened to Supervisor Groves, and I'm kind of feeling I might be in his camp that this is becoming too confusing. And maybe we should take it back, come back with the procedural changes, with everything else back in place as it is now. And those changes come out, and then it'll be clear what you're adopting, because obviously the public is invested in this process, they want to be part of the process. So we want to make sure that the document fits that model.
I'll move the subsequent.
Hold on just a second. We don't have a second on the first. I'm wondering if you'd like to withdraw.
I can withdraw and amend to them.
So we can come back in the next meeting.
And it'll be a cleaner copy except for those track changes on the agenda, that's fine.
Okay, and can you name a date? Want to go for the first?
Yeah, it shouldn't be that big a deal, right? The first.
Okay, next meeting. Do I have a second?
I will second.
Okay. This is not a it's a resolution, quite not yet. Bobby? Okay. So we're going to table it with coming back at the first.
Well, actually, if you could just direct staff to make the changes.
Bring it back to the first, on the first.
And remove the changes of the other items, and that's what will come back to you for adoption.
Okay.
So many.
Every single thing.
And we'll not
Thank
put it on the
you.
consent agenda next.
It's being noted. Thank you. Since this is kind of a resolution, why don't you go ahead and hold the board? That's not really.
Supervisor Rose?
Aye.
Supervisor Morris? Yes. Supervisor Chad? Yes. Supervisor Fenner?
Yes. Thank you, board. Thank you, public. Adopt a resolution which creates a Trinity County cannabis excise and sales tax and approved ballot language and ordinance. This will be voted on by the people of Trinity County in the November 7th, 2017 odd-year general election, which includes the uniform district election law. Impact, there is impact to general fund. And what we're doing is, there's an ordinance attached to a resolution. We would do the resolution first, putting it on the ballot, and then once it fails or is passed by the voters, it would go forward as an ordinance.
How does it move forward as an ordinance if it's an initiative?
No public comment.
So maybe the ad hoc could give us just a little bit of a quick overview.
I'm getting my papers out.
That's you and Bobby, right?
Yep. Yes. There's some additional information that I'm not crazy about, and I'm just gonna say it like that, that gives projections of possible income.
Projections.
So,
We're supposed to project our income.
there's one more up here if anybody wants. I don't really feel that there's a way to project any possible income. It can be as low as $150,000 up to $13.5 million.
As low as 150,000?
General overview of this item.
Bobby, I know you've done this, but no, there's no changes in we're looking at bringing it forward. First of all, this is putting
They
a
didn't
heavy
put a proper
burden
notice on it?
Where's it from?
Yeah, what is this?
New information?
Second, cannabis cultivator at the rate of $12 per pound.
Can you speak up?
No, yeah, the mics are on, it's just people are talking and having time.
I just can't hear you.
Okay. $12 per pound for cannabis flowers, $6 per pound for cannabis leaves. Nursery sales, which would most likely not affect farmer, because they should be getting hopefully a BOS form to not have to pay taxes on their product. I don't know how the state's moving forward with that. You might have more information at 2.75%. Distributor transfers or sales originating from product grown in Trinity County of cannabis flowers at $20 per pound, cannabis leaves at $6 per pound, and every sale originating in Trinity County at 2.75% in addition. One thing that this doesn't take into account is, it does take into account on this one is retail sales, especially regarding oils and salves and edibles. That's really kind of difficult to break out. This type of taxation is in line with the state. Got a good question mark there. Also,
We're just wondering where these productions came from.
What state? Yeah.
Yeah, in what state?
This is gonna be fun.
Do you want to wait for public comment or do you want to leave? Terry, you know the routine. Who is, I thought he was.
Is there gonna be public comment?
Yes.
Oh, there wasn't earlier for something we usually do, so I'm just checking, we were concerned. That was innocent, I'm serious.
Okay, thank you.
So Jen, I just have a quick.
No, I have.
I just have a quick question, maybe.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm assuming maybe it's not meant to have the square footage in here, is that correct?
Yeah, that's what I've been after Margaret for months to do this, and unfortunately, she's been tied up with many other things, so it's coming down to the line.
So we can scratch the square footage?
Scratch the square footage.
That's
and-
not what your intention is?
No, absolutely not. And also the portion that talks about future taxation or
Yeah.
future percentage, that's in there for you guys to decide if you really want to move with something like that. I don't approve of that at this point. That needs to have the public input in the future.
But we aren't getting rid of the square footage, that
Yeah,
wasn't your intention?
that was, and that's in the ordinance
in
portion of it.
For those keeping check out there, that's 329-060 item B. That would be scratched, and I would assume you would scratch square footage in the definitions number 4.
Where, one more time, Keith?
Here we go.
So on page 6 of 12, it's 3.29.060, item B, where they talk about
Remittance.
square footage. That would be scratched.
That's not, that's.
It's in two places, he's right. There's a remittance section, isn't that what you're talking about?
That's removed.
You're right.
And also, I'd like to remove the portion that looks at future taxation, future percentage.
So that would be
So all the blank lines?
3.29.05, item 2, and B, item 2, and C, item 2, and D, item 2.
Okay. Okay. And then,
Everybody get that?
That is not, that was not part of it.
there's more though. It gives the tax assessor the
What other
ability to raise
items
that.
does the board have on this?
Right there. Increased tax rates.
There's
Well, I have,
Don't just shout it out, okay?
and I've got comments on this.
Let's start going through it.
Okay, so on the opening page, under summary, we have every distributor transfer of sales originating from product grown in Trinity County and cannabis. The ordinance doesn't say anything about Trinity County, so. I don't know what your intention was, do we make this only for Trinity County, or make it all cannabis manufacturing?
She was given specific instructions on this. It's making it all,
I'm sorry, excuse me, is this available for public viewing? I haven't seen the document, there's one in a binder. Is it on the website?
It is
or-
on the website.
it's,
I couldn't find it.
okay, sorry about that.
It's,
You need, if you want to question something, stand up and say point of order and ask what the problem is. We'll talk.
Oh, fantastic.
We'll talk later.
Okay.
on the summary page, we have product grown in Trinity County, but in the ordinance,
It's not in there, so she didn't get that in the ordinance, so that needs to be corrected.
so, but you want this to only be, so if a manufacturer buys from Humboldt, you don't want us to charge them tax here?
Thank you.
They're paying taxes in Humboldt already.
Not the manufacturing taxes.
Okay, then bring this forward, and what is the board's pleasure with this one?
Well, let's just make a note of it, so we can clarify it, and just.
Well, mine is that this is common in other industries, is that you can move stuff in, but the next level of tax would be tax, otherwise the Trinity County person is going to pay a higher tax than the home. So that would give incentive for the manufacturers to buy out of Canada.
Right. And also, what about moving Trinity County cannabis out of county and having a manufacturer in Humboldt deal?
Yes, that, I would say that you would have to tax that person.
But from a Trinity County viewpoint?
From a Trinity County viewpoint.
Okay.
Which I believe is what your ordinance says.
Right.
It's just that the cover letter didn't say that, so I just wanted to make sure that that's where we were at.
Okay, next.
So.
Those are
I go on to page 6, and this is under the tax imposed. You talked about $12 a pound for cannabis flowers. I think we would say dried cannabis flowers, and not. That way, there's some misconception out there that this is a harvest tax, where this is my understanding is this is following the state model.
Perfect.
Which would be dried flowers.
Okay, board have any problem with
No,
that?
you need more.
And
It needs to say that enters the
Go
market.
on Supervisor Grove's comment. It is when it's sent into the commercial market, not when it's pulling it out.
No, it's not when you're pulling it out. It's
Well,
when you,
there's some
misconception, I understand, is when you approach your distributor after you've had your lab go through and say it's approved to sell.
It doesn't say that.
So I wanted that clarified.
It doesn't say that is
It
the
needs to
issue.
say it.
Okay, so it needs to be
Please,
added.
please.
Let's wait for public comment on that. Keep it in there that you want to add that.
Are you making your tracking this?
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that was 3.29.050B1.
Right.
$12 per pound for dried cannabis.
Right. And any place we talk about cannabis flowers or cannabis leaves, they would be
So,
dried cannabis.
in addition, then CD1. And we also, we might want to adopt the definition if it's not already in here on the commercial market where it speaks to it in trailer bill. I don't know if it's in here or not. So
Is
there's
there a
clarification.
reference in the trailer?
I'll have to go look.
What if you're telling
Yes.
something else?
So let's, if it's, but at least make a note so we know what we're talking about when it enters the commercial market.
Add the distribution. So there's no problem, so it's not mistaken with tax or manufacturer.
Right.
It's, yes, it's 34012 in the trailer bill. Impose a cultivation tax on all harvest cannabis that enters the commercial market. And then someplace later, which I don't have certain of this, they have a definition of what the equipment is. Basically, as soon as it transfers. So we go on to C1, the nursery.
What page are you on?
I'm still on page 6, I'm sorry.
Okay, got it.
I don't know how I did this without Bill here before. It's kind of like this. It's everywhere.
That is family divorce.
So on C1 on page 6, we talk about annual commercial for nurseries shall be 2.75. You say of gross sales, I would say of gross cannabis retail sales.
So that
Because
nothing else
you're not
gets
gonna, if they
taxed,
sell,
because if they sell
if
shovels and
they
soil.
sold some dirt or something, we don't want to charge that.
Okay.
And then plus it's retail.
Or you can do that
It's
for
Right.
just
free,
which we don't even know where we're at on
With the 6 months, okay.
that. So, and then on D, every person who's engaged in business, I would personally remove testing labs, having to pay the tax in and out.
There wasn't any reference to testing labs. Yeah.
You
If you
There's
see.
reference.
D1, every person who's engaged in business is dispensary, manufacturer, testing lab, and
Yeah.
transporter. I would also pull transporter because the new trailer
No.
bill removes.
I mean, yes, there should not be any on testing labs or transporter.
Yeah, they've removed transporter as a license in the state. let's see, and then, as we go down that, it says the initial tax rate effective for transfer of sale originating in Trinity County, which is okay because it's the sale that's originating, not the cannabis, shall be $20 per cannabis flowers, a pound for cannabis flowers. I think that would be cannabis products, if you're trying to capture the oils. Because nowhere in this tax is, you say that you go after the manufacturer, but the manufacturer more likely is going to be making oil. And so imposing a tax would be on the oils too. So if it was $20 a pound for cannabis oil. So what do you think about that?
Okay, think about that. Is that, Bobby, do you have any input on that one? Okay.
Any thoughts since you're the other half?
I'll wait to public comment.
Oh, you don't want to listen on anything since you're an ad hoc?
I can talk now, or we can wait till the public. I'd rather the public say what they want to say without me influencing them.
No, I just want to know if you had anything technical we need to know. No?
Okay, go on.
All right, in the next one, 3.29.060, we already removed B, but this is, comes out of the alcohol business. The alcohol business, you have to have a bond to the value of the tax you owe in the time period. So if you have to pay your taxes every 30 days, you would have to have a bond. And I believe the state is requiring a bond for the value of the product. So that's something that you can consider putting in.
If that's something that does want to happen, putting it in a future date, making that effective in a future date, say 3 or 4 years down the road.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, you're going to do that immediately, and that's going to affect how you.
So for people that, bonds can be either purchase a bond, or if you are going to owe $1,000 in a quarter, you just put $1,000 in the account in case you go out of business or don't pay your taxes.
The BOE won't automatically make that happen.
No.
I didn't see it, but that's really gonna come from them. Whatever their vehicle is.
Yeah, whatever their new thing is. Well, not, the state version does require a bond for your taxes.
Right. Oh, so I got you.
But this would be a
So we
bond
have
for
to
the
do
county
one too.
taxes, so that's a common practice.
Point of order,
Yes, sir.
you say put it in an account, don't understand that.
So for example, in the alcohol business, I have an account where there's $5,000, it's a bank account that I earn interest on, but the state has access to that money. And in case I don't pay my bills, then they can pull that money out. And if I don't have the $5,000 in there, then they can close my account.
Requiring us to have bank accounts.
I
Our
really,
county is gonna work for us.
I don't want to go too far down the weeds
Right.
in that, but.
I don't necessarily want that to be
What's
part
a bank
of this,
account?
but I think that it's something the public can comment on in a few minutes.
Throw that in there as a question of common practice. And then,
Burden on farmers.
well, we do that on minors too, so. So, under the penalties and interest, we don't discuss
Oh, yeah, gonna talk about that.
pulling a license if somebody refuses.
That's what I,
So,
we'd have to make the state aware that they're not paying the licenses.
We're required to do that anytime.
Right, I know that, that's why.
at some point, there has to be teeth,
Okay,
sometimes.
where would you want that? Penalties and interest? Would it be
Yeah, under
new
penalties and interest.
That's what we're
Item 4 or C? Okay.
And that's all I have for right now.
Those are my earlier comments and questions. board knows that the state is charging
$148 a pound.
Yep,
so this would
that's
bring
right.
up
$160.
This is something the board wants to look at. That amount of money, does that need to be changed?
Well, we'll hear what, I mean, you're going up $12 roughly.
And they're roughly,
The state's gonna make them at 148 for having what you're proposing.
and that, what percentage would that bring? They can handle about 30%. As long as if it's not gonna work, it's not gonna work.
I just wanted to know some folks had a number, the state was gonna get 48, you're asking to put just $12 on.
Good.
In the state for flowers is 44. I mean, excuse me, for leaves. It's 18,000.
Okay, let's go ahead and open it up to public comment.
You get one? Who's going first?
Get it.
Gentlemen, ask you some paperwork. I'd like to thank all you guys for all your work you're doing for us. You are working for us to get us what we need to make this all work for everybody, and we like that. First of all, I don't know if putting the word medical back in the ordinance will help protect us from feds and state agencies at this point, at least until the California recreational rule comes in, because at this point, that's not effective, so we can't work under just a recreational ordinance. It's gotta be a medical. At least that's what I've been explained to me. Anyway, as far as the tax, it seems like you guys have suggested a lot of things that we weren't liking in here. The only thing I would like to suggest, and I don't know if this excise tax thing, I'd prefer it to be a sales tax charged at the end. The problem with this tax is it's taking money out of our pockets that we're here in the county spending, making our economy go, making this work. A resale tax or a sales tax would bring money from outside in. Instead of taking the money out of our pockets, it would be bringing it from out of the county into the county. The only other thing about this excise tax is what happens if you want to go a year and not grow? Are we going to be paying some fees on something that's, even if we're not producing? And the only other thing is I'm a little scared of is all the talk about seizure and confiscation of your property if you don't pay your taxes. What if you were a property owner and another person had the licenses, was doing the grow, they didn't pay their part? Is that gonna fall on the property owner then? All the fines and everything to deal with. Otherwise, it seems like you guys handled most of the things. The square footage thing, I couldn't understand how you would try to do that. And the percentage every year going up. Anything you guys could do to help us the first 4 or 5 years to get our feet under us? We're not a big corporation with tons of money. We can't just float for a long time. But if fees need to go up later, we can understand that. But for now, we need to get on our feet. So anything that's going to help us not drain our banks and get this off the ground will greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
The fees are not gonna go, that is pulled out of this simply because I would prefer to go back to the public for another vote.
Okay, I heard that. That was great. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Board. Tom Malenko, Douglas City. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Supervisor Chadwick, for coming forward with this in a timely manner. I know many of us have asked that we can go into the marketplace, the legal marketplace in January, knowing what we're going to have to spend on taxes. Many of us, many of the people in this room have said for years, hey, cannabis is good for Trinity County. Here's the opportunity for us to actually put real money where our mouth is. Yeah, these are some bigger numbers, but compared to what the state's charging, I think they're reasonable. It's less than 10% of what the state is charging us. I must say, when I first saw the fixed dollar amount versus a percentage in Alma, I bristled at that because I said, well, the price of cannabis has been tanking for years, and if you put a hard number, that's going to hurt us. I actually had a conversation with some of the drafters, and they reason that part of why that is a hard number is for some price stabilization. Farmers have borne the brunt of the tanking of the price of cannabis. The price out the door at the dispensary has gone down about 40%. The price of a pound of cannabis at the farm has gone down 400%. So it sure would be nice to see some equalization and the price at the farm go up a little bit. I think this helps us be reasonable with our distributors and retailers at the end of the line saying, hey, we've got to pay this. We can't give it to you for $500. It's got to go higher. In terms of the retail, I think that's reasonable as well. I like that there's an opportunity for retail, be it e-commerce, be it delivery, whatever it is. An opportunity for us to go farm direct is a great thing for local farmers. It brings some revenue, and I think the county should share in that. It helps us work together in what we're looking to do. And I think as we look beyond the turbulence that's accompanies January and all of 2018, we're going to work together. This is an industry in this county. The county deserves to benefit from this. I think this outlines it well. I like that it has to go to the voters. I think it's odd that 25% penalty fee seems a little large. It's bigger than the IRS charges. I think one way around that would be that bump, because then you could take it out of the bump, so we're not getting hit with that 25%. It's already in the bank. But anyway, thank you for bringing it forward. I think it's in good shape. I would support it, and hope everyone else does too.
No problem. No problem. Truthfully, you guys cleaned up a lot of things, because I was concerned about the West Flower Drive. You guys really cleaned up a lot of this mess. I think it's pretty close, like, to where I, because I was confused, actually, more than anything, on a lot of things. I think the numbers are fine. My biggest concern is, of course, is when we collect $13 million, which I hope we absolutely do. No, seriously, this is the idea here, is to bring revenue and economic viability to the community. It's that we all have a say maybe in how it's going to get spent, that it doesn't, just go off into crazy things. Maybe we see the improvements like the law enforcement, schools, roads, and those kind of things, because I think everybody here really isn't against paying taxes. We're all upset with the price of cannabis, where it's going at in the marketplace, but like I think Mr. Blanco just said, a fixed price actually will stabilize this market. Part of the key is nobody has any fixed prices, and we do get abused as the farmers at that end of the spectrum, for sure. And so as the state and everybody actually lays out the prices, the retail markets and all of it will stabilize, as Mr. Blanco says. I actually agree with that. It actually makes a lot of sense. And I think that if we can get some retail in our county, it would be super big, because every tax dollar for this community is monstrous. And I do think that you've come up with a pretty good, solid plan here to achieve those revenues, which I think we desire to see hit our community. So, good job. Thank you.
Since elections here, what is if this is for November, don't we have to have this done in 88 days ahead? Is that correct?
That's what I've been trying to do. And
so we're getting really short in time to get this done.
That's why Margaret was writing the resolution on her cell phone from Minneapolis.
Okay, so this is a really time crunch, right?
Yeah, time crunch, but we have a couple other meetings coming up, which we still can work through this on.
Liz McIntosh, Junction City. So if I'm understanding correctly, you're saying that you want to pass a resolution today, but you're still going to alter the ordinance as we get closer to the tax?
No, the ordinance would be altered today.
Okay, so then this reminds me a lot of the governance manual, and personally I feel like there's still a lot of ambiguities in here that I'd like to see it in writing before you guys resolve it. And further, I would disagree with an earlier statement that we've all been waiting to put our money where our mouth is. We've been waiting for a permanent ordinance, and we don't have one, and now we're going to tax us and extract more money from our industry before we even have any certainty of when that's coming. And so there was a couple other things that I did appreciate Keith's input on a lot of this stuff. After you took out in section 3.29.050 tax imposed with the B, C, and D number 2s, there's also a spot that ties in there when it talks about what the treasurer tax collectors actions that they can do are, and one of them is to increase the tax rates in accordance with this chapter. So Did
was
that come
one of
out?
those- Yeah.
All right. And then down in the enforcement and action to collect and all these penalties and things like that, I've looked through SB 9.4. I see that they do some similar things as far as they declare it a misdemeanor if you're in violation. They will, if you're in violation, they'll give you a 50% penalty fee. But I would really encourage you as our county to understand that we really have a huge wall up ahead of us as small farmers, a huge wall. And anything you can do to alleviate some of the burden, and frankly, I personally don't see the urgency. I want to pay a tax, but I want to pay the right tax. And this is not the right tax, and it's not the right time. And if you're going to take $35,000 from the taxpayers, which I am one of them, I'd like to see it fine, do it in June. Do it at another one, or wait until a regular election. We're already spending all this money for fees, and that I know of, I have not heard a word about a fee study. I know in the ordinance says within a year. It's been a year, almost. And so, I just would like to have some certainty before you go forward in resolving to just put this on there. And let's see, I also have high objections to you coming after people's properties. I think that's just downright wrong. That is not in the state tax. I would like to see what Mr. Groves suggested as far as if you're going to suspend or revoke somebody's license, obviously that makes sense, And but coming after them for all this and then saying that it is that the enforcement is collective, it makes it sound like they can do any one of these things at any time. Within 3 years is a big time frame. That means they can abate you. Section 8.90 of County Code is in there. Come after your home. It's so much, and we have such an uphill battle, and we need your help. So thank you. Please don't pass this today.
So give me a specific, you went over a couple of things very quickly. Give me a specific that I think it was under penalties that is really giving you some heartburn.
Well, personally, I get notified by this county as well as by the state to pay my taxes. And there's something in there that says that you don't have to notify us. But then right below it, when it talks about...
Can you give me a section that you're at?
Yes. The clock's not going, I guess I'm okay. Oh, here we go. 3.29.090, which is page 7. Just above penalties and interest, it says that you're not required to give us notice. So being new at this, and I understand we need penalties and interest and those kinds of things, but if you are 30 days late, that will be a 50% penalty plus 1.5% for the month. And so I just don't think that penalty, I know that we compare ourselves to the state, but it's so much that I would like to see it be a lot less. It would go a long way as far as good faith from the farmers in voting on this thing.
Right, and that was brought up possibly reducing that and linking it to the bond. And I'm not crazy about the bond.
About the bond, we need bank accounts, right?
Yeah,
Hard to have.
I know.
And they're shutting them down.
So, just consider that, please. And that's, I just feel like it's so much so fast, but don't get me wrong, I want to pay taxes.
Okay, also keep in mind that if the ordinance doesn't pass, this would be absolutely moot because there would be heat plants on 10 acres or more if we don't move forward with the ordinance. So,
meaning you can't move forward one in a June election or at any other time.
What I'm saying
just
is
right
that
now.
if this board does not move forward with an urgency ordinance at the end of August, you'll be back to heat plants on 10 acres or more. And
Why wouldn't you give us a permanent
there will be nothing
ordinance?
to tax, Liz. Let me finish. There will be nothing to tax.
That's because you guys are not having the resolve to do it. At this point in time, we were pretty much given the indicator that we'd have a permanent ordinance. And now we're extending it for a year?
Liz.
No, we've paid how many millions?
Liz.
You didn't hear what I said. Maybe you.
Maybe I
you can
didn't.
move forward.
I do have a question for
Liz.
And you have the tax collector can modify payment, which means they could say no cash. Sorry, I missed that.
So,
actually, at this
so you had a few specific things, but you said this is the wrong tax. So
I feel like it's too much too fast and we have no certainty.
The only other model is the Sonoma County model, which is just a
It's
square
just
foot
awful.
model.
Ruined small farms completely.
So what model are you trying to propose?
First for starters, I would propose something that maybe considers grade. I understand that in the next couple of years, as we're transitioning to the legal market, county governments and state governments don't necessarily trust that we're going to claim everything. And so that's why you see things like the square footage tax. I could understand if you had a very modest square footage tax between 10 and 25 cents per square foot, that you'll consistently get that for the next couple of years until it becomes like the gross receipts or what you guys are talking about. I do fully appreciate the clarification. It's not written here, so I want to see it in
There's
writing.
no guarantee
right?
that your farm will produce on a square footage tax if you have nothing to take to market.
That's true. But currently on what you're proposing, I ran some numbers yesterday modestly at 10,000 square feet of what could be produced. It's still less. I would also say cottage farmers should be exempt from this. I want to promote small business here, and I feel like we're getting the shaft. You know, there's a lot of ways to do this, and frankly, for the state level, it's the distributor and the manufacturer that are responsible for paying our tax. My responsibility to them is to make sure I get that receipt so I can report it, but they are the ones who do it because it's entering into the market at their door.
And it will be money.
You did what?
Well, if you get a check for $1,000, they will take that right off of your money.
They'll take it, which is
So
a
you
lot.
are paying it. But I want to go to a bigger picture here, and that you talk about grading, and having different prices for grades. So in the marketplace, and I'm just going to do a little economics on taxes here. Sorry, John.
No,
I want to go off.
That's fine.
So what you're describing is a luxury tax. The higher the quality, the bigger the tax. And so what that does is it puts more dollars, tax dollars, up on the higher end of the quality, which then forces buyers to go down in quality to buy to what they can afford. Where a set sum fee, such as an alcohol, is what this is described as, puts the burden on the cheap product, because a much larger percentage of the cheap product is taxed. So if we take a bottle of cheap vodka at Long's, 71% of that is tax. If you go by the top line there, maybe 20% is tax. So what that drives the consumer to buy higher end, because it's a better deal. So you always talk about trying to protect the small, high-end farmer, but your policies rarely ever show those.
I am not the professional. I am raising my concerns. I clearly don't understand it all. What I really, really have a problem with is I'm feeling like this is shoved down our throats and I don't fully understand it. I appreciate any education that you can give, but I see discrepancies, such as like in the state, they have a mechanism for refunds. They're looking into that. They have a way for it to go up and down and that kind of thing, and it reflects the market price. Ours doesn't reflect the market price as of right now. It'd be flat, which is fine, and it is pennies compared to what the state is doing, but not if our price drops down to 500, or less for some. Like you said, the burden would be on them, and if I appreciate what you're saying, but I really feel like this should have been a presentation where we could ask questions and get that understanding. We're not supposed to be tax professionals. I'm a farmer. I don't understand, but I need to know that when this goes through, you guys pass it today, is this the language, or I'm supposed to make sure I have the strikeouts? And with the governance manual, it's like, it's confusing. I'd like to see it together, that I know that this is what we're going forward with. Otherwise, all I can do is rail against it, but I appreciate the education.
Jake Hayford. Very collected and quiet. I think a lot of this is uncertainty. As a cannabis producer, from the majority of my entire adult life, we have not talked about taxes. Some of us have paid taxes in our own way, whether we like it or not. You guys are asking us to come out of the shadows here under a temporary ordinance that is very temporary right now. So what happens with the 60 farmers right now that actually have licenses? We come forward, we get involved, we start paying taxes, and all of a sudden this disappears.
Oh, wait, I have a quick question just raised for me. This isn't Is this
Right.
for next year?
No, this would go into effect immediately, but
Right.
we have no way of tracking anything
Right,
until
so-
track and trace kicks in, so.
Let's just say
it
we're all
would be
honest,
up
though.
to you to decide whether you wanted to pay or not until we really have a track and trace that kicks in, so.
Well, if we're trying to work with the
And track and
community
trace
here.
is up in the air for how long?
No.
Up to a year or two out?
2019.
So-
We could right now, we need track and trace. We
Well,
got
let's just
voluntary
pretend that we're all
programs.
being honest Abe's and we're selling everything taxed on the white market to help the schools and the law enforcement and fish and game do their job.
No, it won't go to fishing game, sorry about that, it goes into the general fund.
I understand, I'm just saying, so there's 60 licensed farms right now. There's 60 farms that have that sweet shiny stamp on a piece of paper. Is everybody that is submitted for this program going to immediately start working with this tax base? Or is it just the 60 licensed farms? Now, if this fails, these 60 farms have come out into the open and say, hey, this is what we produced on our 10,000 square feet. This is what we sold. Yes, we are breaking federal laws. And let's be honest here, if this ordinance fails, there isn't a single person in this room that's gonna stop doing what they do, because we've all been doing it our entire lives. So we can say, well, if this doesn't pass, it's gonna be 8 plants next year. It's not.
Okay, but there still won't be a mechanism to tax.
Actually, I just want to say one thing quickly though, because it says we're legal, so they're really sick. If we screw this up, we don't get state money to fight it, it does blow money. The Wild West is here, it's our state funding.
We want this to work, but it just seems incredibly uncertain right now. I think that one, as a farmer, I don't understand this stuff. Just like Liz said, a lot of us don't understand it. I have not gotten a chance to sit down with an attorney or sit down with somebody that understands this. I just saw it for the first time today. Yes, I've been very busy.
So did these two.
Totally. How can we vote on something that is so far up in the air right now? And not only that, going into this, we don't have a permanent ordinance. So we're talking about a tax, permanent records having to do with a very gray business here. And we're talking about the people who are trying to do this right. There needs to be some certainty, and that's what I'm feeling from the community, is that there is no certainty having to do with it. Even with you guys discussing it up here, like, oh, this shouldn't have been in it, we need to strike this. So, that's great, it's a great conversation. But I feel like this also was maybe written, or there was a limited input having to do with this. There wasn't a community-wide input. I don't think there was a full input from everybody that maybe needed to be involved.
And that's the way it works right now, that's why we're here now, and that's why this will probably be continued to another meeting that's coming up, so.
Well, let's please continue the positive work, and let's
Keith
not make
ask this question.
any definitive things right now.
That's a possibility, yes or no, I don't know, it depends on the pleasure of this board. Keith?
I think we're missing a huge thing here. First off, this won't take effect this year because the election's not until November. Right. Remember, this is just putting something on a ballot where you will have months to discuss and look at and choose thumbs up or thumbs down. This is not, we don't have the ability to pass this. This is the people's ability to pass at a later date.
Well, it seems like there needs to be more time to really sculpt this thing into something great instead of something that's like, we need this now.
How are you going to be sure that what you sculpt into something great will be passed by the voters?
Right.
And why don't you move forward and sculpt something great and bring it forward to the voters?
That is right.
Because we're farmers.
Yeah, because I work 18 hours a day on top of a mountain. That's why. But, like every other group out there in industry and stuff, yes, maybe we should get together and sculpt our own things. We were hoping that as elected officials, as a committee that was put together from elected officials, Bobby and Fenley, to do this. You guys are representing us, the voters, the taxpayers, the community. You guys are who should be sculpting this with us in mind, not the lords and the peasants. You guys are representing us, the hopeful taxpayers, if you will.
And that's why we're here today, and we will probably be here at other meetings.
Fantastic.
Keith?
Well, again, you haven't told us why
what you just asked to have happen hasn't happened.
Why
Oh,
hasn't
what I
the
mean
ordinance
is
happened? We don't know.
the policies set forward and sculpted by this group and being vetted publicly. You just said you don't like the process, but you haven't said that what's wrong with this.
Right.
I haven't had a chance to figure out what's wrong with this completely.
So
I
there
just
is
saw it when I
something
sat
wrong
down
with
here, and I'm a farmer. Tom Blanco is so lucky that he is a two-tool player. He is a farmer and a lawyer and can look at this and know what's going on. But I think he is probably the only one in the room that can do that.
No.
Now I'm curious who else is in here. I want to work forward with it. I want to read it. I want to sit down with people who understand this stuff. I'm a farmer. You know? And I want time to do it. And this is up for a vote right now to put this onto a ballot, correct?
Possibly.
Possibly.
So I just feel that there needs to be time. Quite frankly, I would love to see a workshop type or town hall meeting having to do with a cannabis tax. Instead of everybody out here going around trying to make their own, sculpt their own like you're talking about, I would like us to work as a community to make something that everyone's comfortable with. And it's right, this is a new thing. This can be an amazing thing. Let's not rush this out the door. Let's get everybody's input. You know?
Thank you, Jay.
Question, Murphy Bar. Actually, what I wrote really isn't as relevant as it was when I wrote it, because a lot of issues have already been addressed.
Thank you.
However, I would like to say that I'm still very confused. I could not feel confident that my concerns would be addressed without seeing a document with the comments, there. The other issue is I would very much support a fair and equitable tax for the cannabis cultivators and businesses in this community. However, when you said it's going to come to a vote, I would love to see an ordinance that I could go out and say, I'm a cultivator, I support this ordinance. I think this ordinance is good for the cultivators. I think it's good for Trinity County. I think it's only appropriate that our taxes can support Trinity County infrastructure and services for all of our citizens. However, I think that we need to get more input from the cannabis industry. I think there needs to be more input from the cannabis industry, as well as other interested parties. I agree with Liz that there's the percentage, and it made sense what you said about the percentages being higher for a lower grade product. But the reality is, a bud that is this big is not, it could be a wonderful, wonderful medicine, it could be a wonderful product. It's not gonna sell for the same price as a bud that's this big. And those are the types of things that I think, however it's crafted, there needs to be a look at the differing prices. There's also an estimate that the price of cannabis is going to drop significantly. And so if that price drops initially, before it comes up, we would be paying a lot higher percentage than when the price could stabilize as our product gains knowledge in other communities and distribution streams are opened up to where we can establish our business, our appellation type businesses and things like that. So I think that a percentage price at the time that the product leaves your hands would be a fairer portion here. I also agree that the proposed penalties are exceedingly harsh and that the enforcement mechanisms are also really severe. So those are the things, but mostly I don't know what I would be supporting at this time. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. My name is Craig Litwin. I'm from Sonoma County. I'm one of the principals at 421 Group, a cannabis consultancy, and I'm here to speak as an outsider looking in. Someone who's worked in the cannabis industry throughout California now since 2008 full-time. I collected signatures for Prop 215 and had the luxury of being arrested for saying the word marijuana in public. So I've been an activist in this industry for quite a while. In Sonoma County, as a former mayor, I co-authored a dispensary ordinance, and I participated in the taxes both at Sonoma County and Santa Rosa. Santa Rosa is doing it right, Sonoma County's done it wrong. Sonoma County said we want an ordinance and then we'll do a tax. Santa Rosa said, let's start processing these things and build a tax. Santa Rosa slowed the process down and had a town hall. Sonoma County did what this started to feel like, but what I think isn't gonna happen, and is my major ask, which is that you wait at least 1 week to 2 weeks before you wait till that 88 days before to give the public a little more time to provide input, letters, have conversations, but that you also consider waiting until June. And I'll tell you, as an outside perspective, from an outside perspective, Trinity County, you're an export county. You want to keep your taxes as low as possible, down on the bottom of the supply chain. And when it gets to distribution and dispensing, when people are bringing money from out of the county, you want to be bringing that money in. Because the money that you have here is already circulating for the different vendors, for the building supplies and soil supplies, etc. With the lowest unemployment rate, it's critical that you bring more money into Trinity and that you start branding yourselves as part of the Emerald Triangle. A couple small points on this ordinance and why I'd like some more time. I strongly suggest you have a de-escalator. Santa Rosa did that, anticipating the price of cannabis dropping, write it in so you can adjust the price. I think as well, setting it for 2 to 3 years in stone. This is the price, it shall not go up from here. If you decide on a range is good, Santa Rosa did that as well. I've already mentioned that waiting until June makes sense. I think by the time the permanent ordinance is in place, you're really still going to be hitting your stride. Plus, this is about the time that the first crops are coming in from mixed light, so you're not even going to be losing anything on the cultivation side of the things. The flower versus the leaves, they're a different proportion of value. I think the tax should be more equivalent. The price of bud versus the price of trim, the tax is not the same ratio. That's something that I would suggest you look at. The $12, I think it's $6. The price of trim is not half the price of bud, as an example. One minor point of information I'd like to bring up in my last 20 seconds. I really appreciate Supervisor Groves how you keep the microphone right in front of your mouth, and it's been easier to hear in the back, and I request that if all supervisors and staff can just put that mic up close. It's a little harder for me to hear sometimes, not because I'm obstinate, sometimes my ears don't work as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that, hi, Lisa Wright from Lewiston. Wow, great. He's covered a lot of things that I wanted to cover. I would say, my question to you though, is what's the urgency? Why do we need to do this now? And I know you'd like to get it on the ballot, but why? You have a very unstable industry right now. You have only a temporary ordinance in place. My suggestion is let it stabilize. There's already a tax by the state imposed. Why don't you wait until it stabilizes, money starts to come into the Trinity economy? Because once that starts to come in, typically from an economic development perspective, and I was a director of economic development for a community in Iowa for 8 years, and we would make presentations to the boards, why they should grant incentives and such. You really need to be encouraging, right, business and money to come in, because that money is going to turn over. So if a farmer sells, a pound for $1,000, let's hope, right? That money is coming in new from the outside. That should turn over 4 to 6+ times within an economy. You're going to get additional sales tax from that. I think allowing that to stabilize a bit, see how the economy might improve before imposing a tax on a fledgling industry that really needs to stabilize. That's really my big concern, is that you're going to drive people out of business before they've had a chance to participate. It's going to be tough enough for small farmers in Trinity to compete with the Harborsides and the big guys with 300 square foot greenhouses and such. So why not make it easier for them now? And then if you do see it stabilize and there's a lot of money coming in and they're making a lot of money, the farmers, then maybe look at doing additional tax. But the state's already taxing, and do you get a share of that at all, what the state's taxing? Are they putting any of it back into the local coffers?
Most likely through grants, which would be very specific on how that revenue can be spent, and it will not go into general fund and not support any general fund services.
So it seems like the emphasis, and I asked why you're doing it with this urgency, is you need more money in your general fund. Is that correct?
No, that's not a driving force at all. Yes, we do.
It's not a driving force.
We do need more money. We do need, whatever you want to offer would be great, but it is not a driving force. This is just the process moving forward with the anticipation of the future.
What's the urgency when it's a temporary industry right now from your perspective?
I certainly hope it's not a temporary industry. That's not.
Well, I mean, it is
what I
because
would
you're under
like
a
to see.
temporary ordinance, right? You haven't moved to the state of
The
permanence.
emergency ordinance.
It's temporary, there's no guarantee when you do move to a permanent that those
Okay,
people are
let's
going to be
move it back to
grandfathered. Right.
the cannabis tax.
Well, I still haven't answered my question really, is the urgency of doing this now. My recommendation is to wait, let it stabilize, let the industry become healthy, see what economic impact you can gain from allowing farmers to operate efficiently and productively and profitably before you start imposing taxes on an unknown, really, right? You don't know the numbers, they're moving all over the place. Take some time. Thank you.
Hi, Board of Supervisors. I'm Stephen Mencken from Mayford. I'd like to thank you guys for your hard work. I know it's difficult. I studied community development and applied economics at the University of Vermont. And one thing that came up time and time again was counties and municipalities across the country lobby for industry to move in. They give no taxes, tax breaks to the extreme. They build infrastructure, they give subsidies. You guys yourselves sought a grant to build a railway for economic opportunity. If I'm mistaken, you can correct me. Now you guys have an industry that was fostered here with the grassroots. It was fought by the government on all levels for decades, but despite we prevailed and we're here and you're ready to accept us as an industry. I'm not sure if you realize what's happening south of here, but Harborside just got published in the New York Times 2 weeks ago, showing off their 360,000 square foot greenhouse. They plan on expanding that to their full 47 acres. They're one of dozens of firms down there that want to be the Mondavi of cannabis. And they want to drive the price point so low that we can't compete. And they will produce a product that 90% of Americans, 95% of Americans that consume cannabis or Californians at this point will not know the difference. I also had a minor in horticulture, and there's hectare-sized greenhouses in the Netherlands that are run by half a dozen guys. They have benches on railroad tracks where they press a button, the bench slides out, it goes to its watering station, it's watered, it's sprayed, it goes back. One guy in a tower. Now, if you want to drive this industry out, you put a tax that's way higher and unnecessary. In my opinion, I think it should be 5 to 10 cents a square foot. You put it so low that it encourages all farmers to get into the fold. And I think the ordinance should also have a clause for people that don't have permitted structures. My brother and I are lucky enough to live in a nice home, and we're seeking our permits, we're waiting for the inspections, but not everyone has that opportunity and they need time to build their home. So I think there should be something in the next ordinance that says you have 3 to 5 years to build their house. We should have no permanent structures right off the bat and bring everybody in the fold. Because if you do it low, and let's say we get, instead of 60 farmers, we get 3,000 farmers at 10,000 square feet, or at 22,000 square feet, the maximum allowable for the state, or 44,000 square feet, we have the chance to generate just as much money as you have on there. I ran the numbers briefly. At 44,000 square feet, you're gonna produce something like 18 million off 10,000. You get 3,000 farmers. There's 3,000 farmers in Hayfork alone. That's not including South County, that's not including Lewiston, that's not including the rest of the county. So I ask, do what other municipalities do to other industries and treat us like an industry and give us favorable economic opportunity. And then we will generate money. For every grower, they're gonna bring in a dozen trimmers, right? Those trimmers have to go out and eat. They have to go out and have fun sometimes. You know,
Sometimes.
we will create economic opportunity. It'll happen. And I know that many counties are quick to fill their coffers, but it's a short-term game. If we want this to be sustainable and viable, we have to take it slow. I appreciate the emergency ordinance. The emergency ordinance in itself is saying that we don't understand the nature of this beast. And it just doesn't seem right to bring forward taxes when we haven't fully understood what we're dealing with. Like, everything is changing so much, and there's so many more anxieties that we all have fighting big business versus these taxes. But yeah, I think 5 to 10 cents a square foot, and get rid of the restrictions. Let's bring everyone into the fold and then push the bad actors out.
Point is taken. Thank you.
Hi, Jeff Goodell, ZDN. I'll just represent all of Southern County, since I'm the
The only one that'll come up and do it, Jeff, you know.
Fight the cartels off.
Well, thanks for cleaning up those couple of things. Obviously, it had us all confused and up in arms about all that stuff. And thanks for helping when I've contacted you guys. You guys have been good, and it builds trust, and that's important. And you know, you guys build trust. Fish and Game destroys it. You know, working with the building department builds some trust, and then they say, "Oh, you can't get renewed now after you pay it." Destroys it. That happened. So, you know, on our side, we got to build trust too. I'll never be happy with whatever tax you put in front of me, because there's going to be something I'm not going to be happy with, but I'll accept a lot. And I'll accept this one after you've made those revisions. But without an urgency ordinance and having that urgency ordinance dangled in front of me, like we're going to yank that out in front of you unless you get on board with this tax, that doesn't help build trust. Not having a permanent ordinance, as volatile as things are, I still don't feel convinced I'm even going to pull a crop off this year because of everything that's going on. Like, there's, you know, and I've spent so much money with the county getting permitted buildings, permits, fees, all that, just to get to here. I don't want, well, for one, I want a permanent ordinance, and I want a tax at the same time, maybe, or I want to vote. Or if the urgency ordinance passes, I still might vote no on the tax come November, because I don't have a permanent ordinance. If I have a permanent ordinance, I'll probably vote yes. You know, I want this to happen. And the tax, what's on there is acceptable to me. I don't like it. There's a lot of it I really, really don't like, but I understand that I'm not gonna like it all. So I'd really like to see a permanent ordinance and a tax at the same time. Otherwise, I don't know if I can get behind it, even though it's acceptable.
I just have a
Yeah.
quick couple of questions. Maybe some response to your questions,
Okay.
Jeff. Did see, unless I'm missing somewhere, that this is not attached to the urgency ordinance.
I know that.
Okay.
I feel like the
okay.
urgency ordinance being dangled
No.
in front of me, like it might not pass if
No,
this doesn't go
the
forward.
statement was if it doesn't pass, this is moot.
Right.
There would be nothing to tax.
Yeah, I understand that, and I feel
Okay,
like
so,
it's
you
being
know-
dangled, that's not
No,
gonna pass
that's
if
not
this
it.
doesn't pass.
Yeah.
And then there's language besides what just John just described that can accommodate, be put into this to accommodate some of those concerns you raised. So it's not this black and white deal. We're having these discussions.
Yeah,
So
okay.
I just want to make sure
I'm becoming more clear
that
about
you're
it
not
as-
walking away with a
as this
different
goes on.
impression.
But, I don't know.
And the permanent ordinance has been explained. We're waiting for CEQA to get completed. That's been talked about over and over. It's almost done. We're gonna amend the UL with some different things.
Do you know when it will be done?
Soon, but.
The state wants to see it on our license
Let's
application.
move it back.
Sorry, the tax.
Percent till 28.
All right, well,
This way.
No, go ahead.
Nope, that way.
Okay.
I was getting off topic, but there is all this misinformation being continues to be spread around that there is no permanent ordinance and it's
No,
being
I-
worked on.
I understand it's a pipeline.
And I understand your.
I just don't want to vote and actually maybe pay a tax under an urgency ordinance and then get the rug pulled out from under me when the permanent ordinance doesn't happen. I know you don't see that coming, but like, again, trust. Like,
Well, if you're not growing and selling it to the commercial market, you're not gonna get taxed.
Right.
I understand that.
And also, until there's a way to actually use the track and trace program that will eventually come with the state.
So you guys
It's
are
an honor
confident,
system.
so you guys are, right, you guys are confident there'll be a permanent ordinance before this actually gets enacted, even if it gets.
Oh, there would have to be.
Which I would assume, well, maybe that's just speculation that it's gonna get approved by the voters, but.
Really?
I think it will, yeah.
The tax,
Yeah.
likely?
Like
Yeah.
Mr. W did?
Well, you have a room full of
I think you're gonna have, yeah.
Every non-grower is gonna vote for it.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Right.
thinking.
That's
Not a
right.
big deal.
They want my money, Keith.
You know, what they
Right.
don't like it because it legitimizes everything.
Oh,
And
yeah,
that really
I
makes me nuts.
Thank you.
But thanks, sir.
Okay, thanks, Jeff.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir. Ben from Wildwood.
From Wildwood.
It's a scary place these days out there.
Might want you to come over there.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah, there
sir.
we go.
Thank you.
What a day.
Don't waste your time.
All right. Well, it has been quite a day. And I thank you guys for your time. And I thank you guys for all the hard work that you put into this. And I walked into this room kind of scared this morning, and I feel a lot better now. And one of the things that makes me feel better is that we are communicating and dialoguing, which feels good. And I see that you guys are listening to us, which is, thank you. That means a lot. Some of the biggest concerns that I had, you guys took off, you guys fixed before we even opened public comment. So thanks for taking our input before the meeting and today. You know, if this passed today, I would be okay. And I don't know if everyone in this room agrees with me, but I would be okay. I would be okay with it. I would feel okay with it. One of the concerns that I do have is I would prefer not to pay a tax until I actually sold a product. So if I have to pay $12 a pound on flour once it's been lab tested, but before I've actually made the sale, it would be nice to wait till I brought in money before I was taxed on that money. I don't know, I'm not sure if maybe I'm unclear on it or exactly when that tax is owed, if it's owed before I actually bring in revenue from a sale.
At the point of distribution, most likely your distributor would collect the tax and pass it on.
Okay.
So,
as long as that's the case,
yeah.
We can put it on block and just get a $3 million loan to help cover
But
that.
it would be ridiculous and unethical to tax you before.
Thanks for that clarification.
I don't know where that came from. It was put out there and it's just not even done in business that I'm aware of.
Yes, it's done in the outcome.
It is?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Well, then let's do it in the cannabis.
You wanna switch teams, Keith?
No, don't, I didn't say that.
Yeah, thanks for that. I mean, it might have just been a misunderstanding on my part, but thanks for the clarification on that. I also agree that some of the penalties seem a little extreme. Maybe we could make them not quite so harsh.
Okay.
I agree with the point that was made by one of the gentlemen before me that we really want to encourage as many farmers as we can to come into this system we're trying to set up. And I think that should be our top priority right now, and I think the taxes can follow that. I think the taxes will follow, but I'd rather have 500 or 3,000 farmers that are licensed and following all of the rules and then come in and put a tax on them rather than put a tax on 60 and maybe have those other 440 or 2,440 all of a sudden kind of get hesitant and start kind of not sure if they want to get in, like get scared away. So maybe it makes sense, or maybe you might want to consider how important it is that we put this in right now versus what the benefit is versus what the potential upside, or what the benefit could be of holding off for a little bit. Just something to consider. Either way, thank you for the work that you guys have done.
Well, Ben, you also might want to make sure you come back on the first and the following meetings when we discuss the emergency ordinance. And don't be scared off by
And Ben, just,
craziness.
if I can clarify, the 60 license is just today. It's just a matter of capacity running the applications through. So I think, let's hear.
Eight
She's
months?
ducking,
So 60
but I-
licenses every 8 months.
Yeah, she's processing.
We're talking like
We hit the 500
6
mark.
months
I
every
think
year.
she's assuming they'll all get
Right.
through, and then they'll have 500 licenses. It's just 60 to office.